If you've been following Relogic's public releases or this YouTube channel, you're probably aware that Relogic's artists and programmers agreed to do a Q&A on the official forums recently. There were more questions and answers than I knew what to do with, so I've included in this video just a selection of them, but there are certainly even more available on the official forums if you're curious. I'll include a link to the thread in the video description below if you'd like to take a look. However, if you just want the Cliff Notes version, well, keep watching. Jimrn, one of the team's artists, answered first. ICBO73 writes, "What software do you use to draw and make the sprites?" The answer was, I mainly use Photoshop, but also Sprite for animation usually. White Shadow asked, "What gave you the idea to make the Crimson?" Jimrn wrote, "It was pretty early on when we started work on 1.2 and I was tasked with trying to come up with an alternative to corruption. So I started to think and doodle some and the rest became Crimson. The result became Crimson rather. I thought about having a very different color palette and had this idea of a red ominous world and then tried to come up with some enemy ideas to fit into that world." Scratch Lunan asked, "Was there any sprites or ideas concepts that you wanted to be added to the game but for one reason or another couldn't be added? If so, would you mind sharing some of them?" The answer was, "I'm not sure. I had an idea of elevators way back. It turned into ropes instead. And I had an idea of pistons and how they could work once. Maybe it could become a mod someday." Chippy Gaming had a question. Never heard of him. Just kidding. Chippy Gaming had a question. What was the most memorable or meaningful moment you had while working on Terraria? Good question, and the answer was, well, one would be while making the Journey's End promo art. I had such a strong idea of how I wanted it to be and a lot of emotions while doing that, and that I wanted it to convey. I've never been so nervous as I was showing that piece to the rest of the team, and when that's probably one of the moments I'll remember strongest in the future. The tie to that has to be meeting the team for the first time after working with them for quite a while already. It was amazing to meet everyone that could be there, and the entire time has been meaningful and memorable from start to finish. I've learned so much. That was it for Jimrn. Grox the Great was next. P-Bone asked him, "If you had the chance, which part of the game would you like to completely rewrite?" The answer to that, the backbone coding framework of Terraria is very old. If we had the chance or time to completely overhaul something, this would be what I'd change. Spectre FKD asked, "What were the biggest roadblocks you encountered over the course of programming Terraria?" Grox answered, "Well, there was this one memorable time where, due to a bug, everything was spiders. Sorry for those with arachnophobia." And next, on to the game's lead coder, Yurizor. Gray Bryn asked, "How did you come up with all of the bosses' art and their moves?" We look at areas of the game, spatially and progress-wise, that would benefit most from a new boss installment. We discuss the spot and matching themes and references for it, passing through multiple iterations until we conclude what's most fun to experience. We decide on the technical bits, sprite sizes, whether to sprite parts for a composition, what projectile art would we need, so the artists can get rolling, and simultaneously, we start implementing the bosses with temporary art, adjusting attacks and patterns until they feel great, and finally, we implement the art and iterate on, change, adjust, the boss's art to make sure it matches the gameplay or vice versa, within feels good territory. Can't Won't Do asked, "What was the most annoying world gen to code?" The answer to that was, so rather than list a feature here, I'm going to point out that no one likes long generation times. One of the parts we struggled with the most is reducing the world gen time while keeping the features we wanted to have. Bless profilers for that optimization process. Not fully sure what he meant by that, but that's his answer. Lomkth, which is surprisingly difficult to pronounce, asked, "What is one thing that was a good idea in concept but turned out to be too hard to code and make a thing?" Yurizor wrote, "I really wanted to add dimensions to Terraria for a long time. However, it is not a reasonable time investment. Terraria was originally programmed with a single world in mind, and many systems check for that world's progress, facts, and other values repeatedly. As much as I want to advocate for dimensions, the amount of work to get them running would be quite significant, bordering on that of rewriting the entire game. Yan Chan asked, do you have any aspect of the game that you wish you could redesign? Does the code base count? There are many things you only realize would have been better done differently in hindsight. Early decisions that stop you from making new exciting features in the future can be hurtful. Psy Love Omega asks, if you could add one more biome to the world, Jen, would you? If so, what would it be? The answer was, assuming technical limitations aren't a thing, I'd love having some deep magical forest filled with adorable critters and glowing lights. Arcane secrets. That would be a pretty good idea. P-Bone asked, to Yurizor and maybe Grox, if you had the chance, which part of the game would you like to completely rewrite? If I can't say all of it, I guess my biggest priority would be isolating classes and at the very least move all of main's static fields into instance stuff, leading into a cleaner way to add dimensions. Right now, everything can query the world because there is only one of it. But I'd love to make worlds instanced so that we can run multiple ones at once. And then there was some hidden text. I'm not really sure what that really means, but I've included it. This was followed by Dark Mega 5 asking, why officially support Tmod Loader? We're not the first to do something like this, actually. Look up Skyrim's script extender, SKSE, on Steam. We're a much smaller team, and focusing on vanilla content means we don't have the time to also make support and adjustments that are tightly based on community requests in regards to allow the making of more content easily. I think that letting those things be community-driven has massive value, mainly to let things be done as the modders themselves prefer it to be done, since they are the ones making the content that mod users will experience at the end of the day. I do try to help when I can, and we do adjust the vanilla code to assist in that goal. I didn't realize that. That's pretty good of them. Alpha the Wolf writes, was there something that you wanted to add to 1.4 or 141 that wasn't added? Yes, let's just say there was a whole lot. Skeleton Sniper 9 writes, I have heard very faint rumors of potentially a Terraria 2. Are these rumors true? Ask Redigit. Well, it's a cop-out, but you can't blame him. Redigit's the boss. Fallout Guy 645 asks, are there any items, NPCs, anything you secretly wish you could still add into Terraria? Yes, many, particularly an NPC related to the princess and a boss related to the Empress of Light. Interesting. If only we could know what he had up his sleeve. Sounds like he had quite a bit, but you know, you can't add everything, right? And then finally, LineFour, who many of you will be familiar with, answered questions last. Once again, Longth had a question. What is one thing that was a good idea in concept, but turned out to be too hard to code and make a thing? LineFour's answer to that was, during 1.4, we discussed making localized a storm lightning when fighting Duke Fishron. It probably wasn't possible, but as I understand it, based on the way the weather system worked, it was not a simple process to make the weather localized instead of worldwide, and we didn't end up being able to add it. It's still a good fight. Gaust writes, why is the 1.4 the final update? I suppose everything has to come to an end eventually, and as Terraria's engine ages, it gets harder and harder to include more content and features in a way that doesn't break things. He's right, they're up to thousands of items now. Someone that needs help, I hope you get the help, someone that needs help writes, will Terraria ever have a sequel? LineFour's answer was, hard to tell what the future may bring. Rather coy answer, but really what do you expect? They can't announce it too soon, whatever it may be. Orion Origins writes, what was something you wish you could have added to the game? I'd love to have seen some deep ocean biome of some sort. Now, I'm down with that. I think that would be a very cool biome. Some of the screenshots, or at least one of the screenshots from the canceled Terraria Otherworld, had a bit of an ocean biome thing going on that looked a little more fleshed out. So it's One of those edges of the map that would be nice to flesh out a bit, but hey, maybe for the next game, right? The Terraria writes, 1. How does it feel leaving Terraria? And 2. When will you start working on your next project? LineFour's answered that. He actually answered both of them. First, well, it doesn't feel like much of a change because I'm still with Relogic and I love being here, so it just feels like a transition. And as for the second part, we can't say. He also added later on, I think the whole team is ready for something new. There were so many more questions and answers that I just couldn't fit into this video, so rest assured there's plenty more to read if you want to go to the thread. Again, I'll link to it. But those were the highlights for me. Other than that, not as many of the team like coffee as I would have expected, which is a bit of a shame, but you know, there's no accounting for taste. State of the game will be soon, so stay tuned to this channel, and of course thanks for watching. Also, I posted a poll recently in my community tab, so take a second to comment and vote. It's a little bit about the future direction of the channel. I'm just trying to get some guidance, so thanks for anyone who responds. Anyway, that's it for now, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video and the Q&A. There was a lot of questions, a lot of answers, and of course, more if you click the link. So if you got a few minutes, you could do worse than click it. Anyway, take care, everyone. I'll see you next time.